Poor mom asks a stranger to pretend to be her husband for a social work evaluation and discovers he's a billionaire. What he does changes everything. Scarlett was sitting on the cold living room floor when the letter arrived. She picked it up from the mailbox without much thought, assuming it was another overdue bill, another red notice, another reminder that her life was falling apart. But when she tore open the envelope and saw the official stamp of Child Protective Services, her heart stopped. Inspection scheduled. Date, tomorrow. Time, 2 p.m. The letters seemed to scream from the page. Tomorrow. She read it again, blinking fast, hoping she had misread it. But no, it was there, clear as day. Written in black ink, official, definitive, less than 24 hours. The paper slipped from her hands and dropped to the floor, floating slowly before landing on the scratched hardwood. No, 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 no. Her breath caught in her throat. The small, quiet apartment suddenly felt suffocating. The walls closed in, the ceiling pressed down. She brought her hands to her face and tried to think, but the only thing that came to mind was pure panic. They were coming tomorrow. They would see the mess, the empty fridge, the overdue bills piled up on the side table. They would see that she was alone, unemployed, without structure, with no support network, and they would take Lily. The idea sliced through her mind like a sharp blade. They're going to take my daughter. Mommy? The tiny voice came from behind the sofa. Scarlett lifted her tear-streaked face and saw Lily, her 3-year-old daughter, clutching her worn-out cloth bunny against her chest. Her blonde hair fell messily over her small shoulders. Her clear blue eyes shone full of worry, a worry a child so small should not carry. The girl took 2 hesitant steps toward her mother. Mommy, don't cry. Those 3 words broke Scarlett inside. She opened her arms and Lily ran to her, settling into her lap and pressing the bunny between the 2 of them. Scarlett hugged her daughter tightly, as if she could protect her from everything just by holding on harder, as if love were enough. But it wasn't. It's okay, my love, she whispered, but her voice betrayed her. It's okay. It was not. She had been unemployed for a month. She had lost her job at the clothing store because she had to miss too many shifts to care for Lily. The girl was sick often. There was no daycare, she had no one to help. And no one wanted to hire a single mother without schedule flexibility. The electricity bill was overdue, the water bill too. The fridge only had half a gallon of milk and some stale crackers. The apartment was a mess because she barely had the strength to get out of bed lately. Everything felt too heavy. And now Child Protective Services was coming to evaluate if she was capable of caring for her own daughter. If they saw the state she was in, if they noticed she was alone, if they thought Lily didn't have what she needed, they could take her away from her. The idea was unbearable, impossible, but real. Scarlett squeezed Lily against her chest and closed her eyes tight, trying to push the thought away. But it returned, insistent, cruel, relentless. They're going to take my daughter. Mommy? Lily pulled back slightly and looked at her mother's face. Her small hand touched Scarlett's wet cheek, as if she wanted to wipe away the tears. Mommy sad? Scarlett forced a smile and kissed the top of the girl's head. No, sweetie. Mommy is just tired. But inside, she was falling apart. Scarlett couldn't sleep all night. She lay in bed, staring at the cracked ceiling, listening to Lily's soft breathing in the next room. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the same scene, people in suits taking her daughter away. Lily crying, reaching out her tiny arms, and she couldn't do anything. At 5 in the morning, she gave up trying to sleep. She got up, brewed weak coffee, and sat at the kitchen table staring at the letter. The words seemed to mock her. Inspection. Tomorrow. 2 p.m. No. Today. Today at 2 p.m. She had all day to prepare. But prepare what? She didn't have money to buy food. She didn't have the strength to clean the entire house alone. There was no way to change the fact that she was utterly alone. Her family lived in another state and barely spoke. Friends had disappeared when things got tough, when she couldn't go out at night anymore, when she had to cancel last-minute plans, When she only talked about diapers and sleepless nights, there was no one. Scarlett buried her face in her hands and let the tears fall. By 11 a.m., she couldn't stand being inside anymore. She had tried to tidy up a little, but her hands were trembling so much she could barely hold the broom. The clock on the wall seemed to be moving faster than usual. Every minute that passed was a reminder that time was running out. She needed to go out. She needed to walk. She needed to breathe. She needed to think. She took Lily's hand and went outside onto the street. The fresh October air didn't help. She walked aimlessly along the sidewalk, her mind spinning in desperate circles. What was she going to do? How was she going to fix this? There was time, but there was no solution. There was no money. There was no help. There was no one. Scarlett squeezed Lily's hand and kept walking, blinded by desperation. And then she saw him. A man walking on the sidewalk, coming in the opposite direction. He was wearing a light, neatly pressed dress shirt, dark trousers, simple, discreet shoes, nothing luxurious, nothing eye-catching. Just an ordinary man, probably returning from somewhere, from work perhaps, or a meeting. But there was something about him, something in his posture. He wasn't walking hurriedly. His face wasn't closed off like most people on the street. There was something gentle, calm, peaceful. And it was at that instant that the crazy idea flashed through Scarlett's mind. She didn't think. She didn't plan. She didn't ponder. She just acted. She let go of Lily's hand and ran to the man, grabbing his arm before he could pass. He stopped, surprised, and looked at her with a confused but not alarmed expression. Not annoyed, just concerned. "Please." Scarlett's voice came out shaky, desperate, broken. The man frowned, tilting his head slightly. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" "Please, pretend to be my husband." The words tumbled out all at once, rushed, almost nonsensical. She couldn't believe she had said it herself. He blinked, clearly bewildered. "What?" Scarlett took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. But it was difficult. Everything was a blur. Everything was crumbling. The words jumbled in her mouth. I know it sounds crazy, I know. But I need help. Please." "Okay." He spoke slowly, carefully, as if trying to calm someone on the verge of collapse. "Explain it to me. What's going on?" "Child Protective Services is coming to my house tomorrow. Tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon. She pointed to Lily, who was standing a few steps away, hugging her bunny, watching everything with wide blue eyes. The girl looked scared but curious. "If they see me alone, they'll take my daughter." Scarlett's voice rose at the end, breaking. Tears streamed down her face, uncontrolled. She didn't even try to wipe them away. The man looked at Lily, then at Scarlett. His expression changed, not to one of judgment, but of something close to compassion, to understanding. "I've been unemployed for a month," Scarlett continued, the words coming fast now, as if she needed to pour everything out before she completely fell apart. "The house is a mess. I don't have proper food. I don't have structure. And if they see that I'm alone, that I have no one to help me, they'll think I can't take care of her." She covered her face with her hands, trying to stifle the crying, but it was useless. "And they're going to take her from me. I know they will. I know." For a moment, only the sound of her ragged breathing filled the silence. Cars passed on the street. People walked by. The world kept turning while hers was collapsing. Then, slowly, the man crouched down to Lily's height. The girl backed up a step and hid behind her mother's leg, peeking at the stranger with curiosity and a little fear. The cloth bunny was pressed tightly against her chest. He smiled, a soft, patient smile, unhurried, the kind of smile that doesn't frighten. "Hi," he said softly. Lily didn't reply, but she didn't run away either. "What's his name?" he asked, pointing to the bunny. Lily looked at the toy, then back at the man. Her blue eyes studied his face intently. "Fluffy." "Fluffy," he repeated, as if it were the most important name in the world. "That's a very good name." "He looks quite fluffy indeed." A corner of Lily's mouth lifted slightly, almost a smile. The man looked up at Scarlett. There was something firm in his eyes now, something determined, something she didn't expect to see. "I'm going to help you." Scarlett felt her legs weaken. She stared at him, blinking, unable to believe what she had heard. "Seriously? Seriously?" He stood up and extended his hand, firm and confident. "My name is Ethan." Scarlett shook his hand, still trembling, still processing that this was actually happening. "Scarlett? And this is Lily." Ethan looked at the girl again and nodded gently. "Nice to meet you, Lily." Lily said nothing, but her blue eyes were glued to him, curious, attentive. Ethan entered the small apartment and paused for a moment at the door, observing the environment. The living room was messy, toys scattered, cushions out of place, a pile of clothes on the sofa, boxes stacked in the corner, accumulated dust. But he didn't make any expression of judgment. He didn't frown, he didn't sigh, he didn't say anything. He just calmly took the watch off his wrist, placed it on the entry table, and rolled up the sleeves of his dress shirt. "We have the rest of the day," he said, looking around. "That's enough time." Scarlett felt such a huge wave of relief that she almost collapsed. Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you." Ethan just nodded and picked up a plastic bag that was lying on the floor. "Let's start." He began gathering the toys scattered across the room. Toy cars, dolls, blocks, crayons. Everything went into the bag efficiently. Scarlett stood still for a second, still processing the fact that this man, a complete stranger, was here, helping. "Scarlett." She blinked and looked at him. "Grab the broom," Ethan said, without stopping his tidying. "And show me where the kitchen is." She obeyed, almost on autopilot. While Scarlett swept the living room, Ethan went to the kitchen and started washing the dishes piled up in the sink. Plates, cups, pots. He worked fast, but carefully, without making unnecessary noise. Lily appeared at the kitchen doorway, watching everything closely. The girl followed Ethan back to the living room when he returned to fix the loose drawer. Then into the hallway when he organized the shoes thrown on the floor. She walked behind him like a duckling, following its mother, watching every move with wide eyes. Fascinated. Ethan didn't seem to mind. He worked efficiently, but without tension, as if this were the most natural thing in the world, as if helping a desperate stranger was something he did every day. "Do you have a shopping list?" he suddenly asked, still tidying the cushions on the sofa. Scarlett stopped sweeping and looked at him, confused. "What?" "The fridge is empty. If they open it tomorrow, it won't make a good impression." She felt her face burn with shame. She lowered her eyes, unable to face him. I don't have money right now to—" "I didn't ask if you had money," Ethan interrupted, gentle but firm. He stopped what he was doing and looked directly at her. "I asked if you have a list." Scarlett was speechless. Her throat tightened. Ethan took his wallet from his pocket and pulled out some bills without ceremony. "Stay here with Lily. I'll be back in half an hour." And before she could protest, thank him, or say anything, he was out the door. When Ethan returned, he was carrying 2 bags of groceries. He opened the fridge and began placing the items inside carefully. Milk, eggs, fruit, bread, cheese, juice, yogurt, butter, deli meat. Nothing extravagant, nothing expensive, just the basics. But it was infinitely more than Scarlett had before. Lily appeared beside him, watching every item he took out of the bag. Her blue eyes followed his movements with fascination, as if she were witnessing magic. Ethan took a red apple and washed it at the sink. Then he cut it into small pieces and placed them on a white plate. "Want some?" he offered to Lily, crouching down to her height. The girl looked at her mother, as if asking for permission. Scarlett nodded, still unable to believe any of this. Lily took a piece of apple with both hands and bit into it slowly. Her eyes lit up and she smiled. A tiny, shy but genuine smile. Ethan smiled back. "Like it?" Lily nodded, chewing with her mouth full, shaking her head enthusiastically. Scarlett felt something break inside her chest, something good and painful at the same time. It had been so long since she had seen Lily smile like that. Ethan stood up and looked around the house. There was still work to be done, but it was already better. Much better. He turned to Scarlett, and there was something steady in his eyes. Something reassuring, something that said, "It's going to be all right. Let's get everything ready for the visit." Scarlett nodded, taking a deep breath, feeling for the first time in weeks that maybe, just maybe, things could turn out okay. The doorbell rang at exactly 2 p.m. Scarlett felt her heart pound. Her hands instantly sweated. She looked at Ethan, who was sitting beside her on the sofa, calm as if this were just another normal day. He nodded, a reassuring gesture. "Breathe," he said softly. "It's going to be all right." Scarlett got up and walked to the door, her legs slightly trembling. When she opened it, she found a middle-aged woman holding a clipboard. She wore thin glasses and a grey blazer. Her face was neutral, professional. "Good afternoon, I'm Ms. Harrison from Child Protective Services." "Good afternoon," Scarlett replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "Please come in." "Miss." Harrison stepped inside and surveyed the room with trained eyes. Scarlett felt every second of that gaze as a sentence being formed. But the house was clean, organized, respectable. Ethan stood up from the sofa and extended his hand. "Good afternoon. My name is Ethan." "Ms." Harrison shook his hand, studying him briefly. "Pleasure. And you are?" "Scarlett's husband," he replied naturally. Lily was sitting on the floor, playing with some colorful blocks. When she heard the strange voice, she looked up and saw Miss Harrison. Immediately, she dropped the toys and ran to Ethan. He crouched down and picked her up without hesitation. Lily snuggled against his chest, clutching his dress shirt with her tiny hands. Her face was half hidden in Ethan's shoulder, but her blue eyes kept watching the unknown woman cautiously. "Ms." Harrison made a note on the clipboard, "And this must be Lily." "Yes," Scarlett said, approaching. "She's a little shy with strangers." "That's normal," Ms. Harrison replied, but her tone was distant, too professional to be comforting. Ethan stroked Lily's back gently, a gesture so natural that even Scarlett almost believed it was real, that they really were a family. Mrs. Harrison walked around the room, observing every detail, the toys organized in the box, the cushions in place, the clean floor. She approached the bookshelf and saw some photos, old photos of Scarlett and Lily, but none with Ethan, obviously. "May I see the kitchen?" she asked. "Of course," Scarlett replied, guiding her there. "Ms." Harrison opened the fridge. Milk, eggs, fruit, bread, cheese, everything in its place. She closed the door and made a few more notes. "And the bedrooms?" Scarlett showed Lily's room. The bed was made. There were some children's books on the shelf, toys organized, everything simple but clean and cozy. Then they showed the main bedroom. "Ms." Harrison observed quickly and returned to the living room. Ethan was still holding Lily. The girl had relaxed a bit, but remained clutching his shirt. Ms. Harrison sat down on a chair and opened the clipboard again. "So, Ethan," she began, the tone investigative. "There is no mention of you in our previous records." Scarlett felt her blood run cold. Ethan, however, remained calm. He sat on the sofa with Lily still in his lap and looked directly at Mrs. Harrison. "I was working out of town for the last few months," he explained, his voice firm but not defensive. "I had to travel for work. I was away longer than I would have liked, but I came back definitively recently. I'm staying now." Miss Harrison raised an eyebrow. "Then why was there no record of that?" "Because I was traveling for work, not missing," Ethan replied, maintaining a respectful tone. "Scarlett was taking care of everything here while I was away. We didn't think it was necessary to report every trip." Ms. Harrison made more notes. Scarlett could barely breathe. "And what is your occupation?" "I work in business consulting," Ethan said without hesitation. "Sometimes I need to travel, but now I'm based here. My priority is being with my family." Lily stirred in his lap and looked up at Ethan's face. Then, without anyone expecting it, she put her tiny hand on his cheek, as if trying to get his attention. "Ethan," she said softly. He smiled at her. "Hi, sweetie." Miss Harrison watched the interaction intently, Scarlett realized that this moment was important. The social worker wasn't just evaluating the house, she was evaluating the dynamic between them. "Lily seems comfortable with you," Miss Harrison commented. "She's an incredible kid," Ethan replied, looking at the girl with genuine affection. "I missed her a lot while I was away." Miss Harrison asked a few more questions about Lily's routine, about food, about health. Scarlett answered everything with as much calm as she could muster, and Ethan supplemented when necessary. He didn't dominate the conversation, but he didn't remain silent either. He appeared exactly as he should, a present father who let the mother lead the questions about the daughter. After what felt like hours, but was only 40 minutes, Miss Harrison closed her clipboard and stood up. "Well, the house is in good condition," she said, the tone still professional. "So the situation seems stable at the moment." Scarlett felt a momentary relief, but knew it wasn't over yet. "I will schedule another visit in a month," Mrs. Harrison continued, "just to ensure everything remains well. It's standard procedure." "Of course," Scarlett said quickly. "No problem." Mrs. Harrison looked at Ethan. "Sand, will you be here?" "Yes," he replied without hesitation. "I will be." Mrs. Harrison nodded and walked to the door. Scarlett accompanied her, her legs still trembling. "Thank you for the visit," Scarlett said, trying to sound polite despite her nervousness. "Until the next visit, then." And with that, Mrs. Harrison left. Scarlett closed the door and stood still, her back to the room, trying to process what had just happened. For a long moment, no one said anything. Then, suddenly, her legs gave out. She leaned against the door and started to cry. It wasn't a cry of sadness. It was relief, pure and overwhelming. "Scarlett." Ethan got up, still holding Lily, and approached her. "It worked," he said softly. She believed it. Scarlett covered her face with her hands, trying to hold back the tears, but it was impossible. All the fear, all the tension of the last few days came pouring out all at once. "Thank you," she whispered between sobs. "Thank you, Ethan. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to." Before he could finish, Lily stirred in his lap. The girl looked at her mother, saw she was crying, and stretched out her tiny arms toward Scarlett. Ethan carefully put her down. Lily ran to her mother and hugged her legs. "Mommy, don't cry," she said, repeating the same words as before. Scarlett crouched down and hugged her daughter tightly. "Mommy is okay, sweetie. Everything is okay now." Lily pulled back slightly and looked at Ethan, who was standing there, watching the two of them with a gentle expression. Then, without warning, the girl let go of her mother and ran to him. Ethan instinctively bent down, and Lily hugged him. It wasn't a shy or hesitant hug. It was spontaneous, genuine. She squeezed her tiny arms around his neck and stayed there, quietly. Ethan froze for a second, clearly surprised. Then, slowly, he returned the embrace, one hand supporting the girl's small back. Scarlett watched the scene and felt something stir inside her chest, something she couldn't name. Gratitude, certainly, but also something more, something that felt dangerously close to hope. Ethan looked up and met Scarlett's gaze. For a brief moment, neither of them said anything. Then he smiled, a small but true smile. "We did it," he said. And for the first time in a long time, Scarlett believed that maybe, just maybe, things really could be okay. After Lily let go of Ethan, she went back to her toys as if nothing had happened, as if hugging that virtually unknown man was the most natural thing in the world. Scarlett was still sitting on the floor, leaning against the door, wiping away the last tears. She looked up at Ethan, who remained standing in the middle of the room, hands in his pockets, watching Lily play. "I don't know how to thank you," Scarlett said, her voice still choked up. Ethan turned to her and shook his head slightly. "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do," she insisted, slowly getting up. "You don't even know me. You had no obligation to do this, and yet—" She paused, not knowing how to continue. There weren't enough words. Ethan took a few steps toward her, but maintained a respectful distance. His face was serious, but kind. "It was good helping you," he said, simply, "and I'm going to continue helping." Scarlett blinked, confused. "What?" "The social worker is coming back in a month," Ethan explained. "If I disappear now, she'll get suspicious. She'll question where I went. And then everything we did today will be for nothing." Scarlett felt her stomach clench. She hadn't thought of that. Of course, he was right. If Ethan disappeared, Ms. Harrison would notice, and everything would crumble. I can't ask that of you," Scarlett said, her voice weak. "It's already too much." "You have your life, your job." "Scarlett," Ethan interrupted her, firm but not harsh. "I've already decided. I'm going to keep helping, at least until the next visit." She remained silent, looking at him. There was something in Ethan's expression that wasn't pity. It wasn't obligation, it was determination. "Why?" Scarlett asked, almost a whisper. "Why are you doing this?" Ethan hesitated for a moment, as if he were choosing the right words. "Because you need it," he finally replied, "and because I can." Just like that. Scarlett felt her eyes sting again, but this time she managed to hold back the tears. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling. "Seriously, thank you." Ethan just nodded. Night fell quickly. Scarlett realized it was already past 6 in the evening, and Lily was certainly hungry. She herself hadn't eaten anything all day. Her stomach had been churning with nervousness since the morning. Do you want to have dinner with us?" she asked a little awkwardly. "It's nothing too special, but—" "I accept," Ethan replied before she could finish. Scarlett went to the kitchen and started preparing something simple. Spaghetti with tomato sauce. Nothing elaborate, but it was what she had. While she cooked, Ethan stayed in the living room with Lily, building a tower of blocks that she immediately knocked down, laughing every time. The sound of the girls' laughter filled the house. Scarlett paused for a moment, just listening. It had been so long since she had heard Lily laugh like that, free, light-hearted. When dinner was ready, she called the two of them to the table. Lily climbed into her high chair, swinging her legs. Ethan sat beside her, and Scarlett served the plates. It was strange, having someone sitting at the table with them. Having company, but it was good. They began to eat in silence. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was peaceful, natural. Lily ate slowly, focused on her little fork. She picked up the pieces of pasta carefully, but half of it ended up falling back onto the plate. Then, out of nowhere, she picked up a piece of pasta on her fork and stretched her arm toward Ethan. "Open," she said seriously. Ethan blinked, surprised. Scarlett too. "Lily, sweetie, let Ethan eat." Scarlett started, but Ethan was already leaning forward. He opened his mouth and let Lily put the little fork inside. The piece of pasta was crooked, half falling off, but he accepted it anyway. Lily smiled, proud. "More?" she asked. Ethan chewed and swallowed, making an exaggerated expression of approval. "It's delicious," he said. "Thank you, boss." Lily giggled, that high, crystal-clear laugh of a small child. She picked up another piece and offered it again. "Boss?" Scarlett repeated, raising an eyebrow. Ethan shrugged, smiling. "So she's in charge now." Lily continued trying to feed him, and Ethan accepted every bite patiently. Scarlett watched it all, and something inside her warmed up. It wasn't just gratitude, it was something different, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Security. After dinner, Scarlett washed the dishes while Ethan helped Lily put away her toys. The girl was already yawning, her eyes blinking slowly. "I think someone is sleepy," Ethan commented, picking up the cloth bunny and handing it to Lily. She hugged Fluffy and rubbed her eyes with her fist. "I'm not sleepy," she mumbled, but she was practically falling asleep on her feet. Scarlett dried her hands and approached. "Come on, sweetie." "Bedtime." She picked Lily up, and the girl automatically rested her head on her mother's shoulder. But before Scarlett could take her to the room, Lily lifted her little head and looked at Ethan. "Bye, Ethan." "Bye, sweetie," he replied, waving. Lily gave a sleepy smile and rested her head on her mother's shoulder again. Scarlett took her daughter to the room and laid her on the bed. She covered her with the light blanket and kissed her forehead. Lily was already almost asleep, hugging her bunny. "I love you, my love," Scarlett whispered. "Love you, Mommy," Lily murmured back, her eyes already closed. Scarlett stayed there for another moment, watching her daughter's calm and peaceful breathing. Then she left the room, leaving the door ajar. When she returned to the living room, Ethan was standing near the door, as if he were about to leave. "Is she asleep?" he asked. "Yes. Passed out in seconds." Ethan smiled. "It was a long day." "It was," Scarlett agreed. She crossed her arms, suddenly unsure of what to say. You don't have to leave yet, if you don't want to." Ethan hesitated, but then returned to the sofa and sat down. Scarlett sat down on the other end, leaving a respectful space between them. For a while they sat in silence. It wasn't uncomfortable, just present. "It was strange," Scarlett finally said, looking at her own hands. "Having someone here, having dinner with someone, Lily laughing like that." She paused. "It's been a while since I've seen her so happy." Ethan didn't say anything, just listened. "And it was strange for me too," Scarlett continued, her voice low, "because for a moment, it felt real. It felt like we were really a family." She looked up and met Ethan's gaze. "Thank you for that, for making her feel that way, even if it's only temporary." Ethan was quiet for a moment, then he leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on his knees. "It doesn't have to be just temporary," he said. Scarlett blinked. "What do you mean?" "I'm going to keep coming," Ethan explained. "Until the next visit, I'll be here, and while I am, we can make this real, not just pretend, but actually help you two get back on your feet." Scarlett felt her chest tighten. "Ethan, I can't—" "You can," he interrupted, gentle but firm. "And you will accept, because Lily needs it. And you do too." She was speechless. Ethan stood up, picking up the watch he had left on the side table. "I'll be back tomorrow," he said. "We're going to make this work." Scarlett stood up too, accompanying him to the door. "I still don't know how to thank you," she said again. Ethan smiled. "You've already thanked me." "About 5 times today." She laughed softly, wiping away a tear that escaped. "Good night, Ethan." "Good night, Scarlett." He left, and she slowly closed the door. The house fell silent. But it was a different silence. It wasn't empty anymore. It wasn't lonely anymore. For the first time in a long time, it felt like a home. And that had been the first night that truly felt like a family. Ethan returned the next day as promised. It was mid-afternoon when the doorbell rang. Scarlett opened the door and found him there, wearing the same light dress shirt and dark trousers. He was carrying a paper bag in his hand. "I brought some sandwiches," he said, holding up the bag. "I thought you and Lily might be hungry." Scarlett felt a tightness in her chest. No one did things like this for her. No one thought of her that way. "Thank you," she said, making room for him to enter. Lily was sitting on the living room rug, drawing with crayons. When she saw Ethan, her eyes lit up. "Ethan!" she shouted, dropping the crayons and running to him. Ethan bent down and she threw herself into his arms. He picked her up easily, smiling. "Hi, sweetie. What are you drawing?" "A house," Lily replied, pointing to the paper on the floor. It was a jumble of colored lines that vaguely resembled a rectangle with a triangle on top. "It's beautiful," Ethan said sincerely. Lily smiled, proud. They ate lunch together at the living room table. Lily was excited, telling disconnected stories about Fluffy the bunny and how he had flown around the house that morning. Ethan listened intently, asking questions as if it were the most important thing in the world. Scarlett watched in silence, still trying to understand how this man had appeared in their lives. How he was so natural with Lily. How he managed to make everything seem so easy. After lunch, Lily returned to her drawings. Ethan helped Scarlett gather the plates and put away the leftovers. When they returned to the living room, Lily was crawling on the floor, following an imaginary line with her finger. Ethan sat on the sofa, and Scarlett sat beside him, leaving a space between the two. They remained silent for a while, just watching Lily play. Then Ethan spoke, his voice low and careful. "Can I ask you a question?" Scarlett looked at him, feeling her stomach slightly clench. "Sure." He hesitated for a moment, as if choosing the right words. "And what about Lily's father?" Scarlett felt the air leave her lungs. She knew that question would come eventually, but still, it hurt. She lowered her eyes, looking at her own hands. He left before she was born. Ethan didn't say anything, just waited. Scarlett took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. It had been a long time since she had talked about this, not with anyone. "We had been together for about 2 years, she began, her voice low. "Nothing too serious, but it wasn't casual either. Or so I thought." She paused, biting her lip. "When I found out I was pregnant, I was scared, but I was also hopeful, you know. I thought we would make it. That it would work out." Lily approached the sofa, climbing onto Ethan's lap without asking permission. She settled there, playing with his fingers distractedly while her mother spoke. Ethan didn't move, just let her get comfortable. "But when I told him," Scarlett continued, her voice growing weaker, "he panicked, said he wasn't ready, that it was too soon, that he had plans and a child wasn't part of them." She swallowed hard, feeling the lump in her throat tighten. "I tried to talk to him. I tried to say we would manage, that I would work, that it wouldn't mess up his plans. But he didn't want to listen." Lily took Ethan's hand and began counting his fingers, whispering numbers softly. 1, 2, 3. He said he couldn't do it, that he didn't want to, and then he left. Scarlett looked up, meeting Ethan's gaze. There was something in it she couldn't decipher. It wasn't pity, it was something deeper. "He completely disappeared," she said, her voice slightly breaking. "Blocked my number, moved cities, never contacted me again, never sent money. I never asked if his daughter was alive." She wiped away a tear that escaped, and I was left alone, pregnant, alone, scared. My family didn't approve, said I was making a mistake, that I should have made another choice. Scarlett looked at Lily, who continued playing with Ethan's fingers, completely oblivious to the conversation. "But I couldn't," Scarlett whispered. "I couldn't give her up, even scared, even not knowing how I would manage. I couldn't." Ethan remained silent for a long moment. Lily had stopped counting and now just held his hand, resting her little head on his chest. When Ethan finally spoke, his voice was low but firm. "He's an idiot." Scarlett blinked, surprised. Ethan looked her directly in the eyes. "He doesn't know what he lost, and he never will." There was something in his voice, indignation, contained anger, but also something more, respect. "You went through all that alone," Ethan continued. "You raised a beautiful, smart, happy girl. You worked, you fought, you did everything you could. And even when you lost your job, even when everything got hard, you didn't give up." He paused, looking at Lily, who was now lightly dozing off against him. "You're extraordinary, Scarlett." The words hit Scarlett like a punch to the chest. She felt her eyes sting. No one had ever said that to her. No one had ever seen how much she had fought. "Kai," she started, but her voice failed. Ethan shook his head. "You don't need to say anything. You just needed to know that." Scarlett wiped away the tears streaming down her face, trying to compose herself. "Thank you," she whispered. "Seriously. For saying that. For being here." Ethan looked at Lily, who was now sleeping peacefully in his lap, her breathing soft and steady. "She didn't deserve to be abandoned," he said softly, "and neither did you." Scarlett couldn't answer. She just stood there, looking at that man who had appeared out of nowhere and who, somehow, was changing everything. Ethan carefully adjusted Lily, making her more comfortable. He didn't seem bothered by the girl's weight. On the contrary, it felt natural, as if she belonged there. "He doesn't know what he lost," Ethan repeated, more to himself than to Scarlett. And in that moment, Scarlett realized something. Ethan wasn't there just out of obligation. He wasn't there just because he had promised to help until the next Child Protective Services visit. He was there because he wanted to be, because he cared. And that changed everything. Lily slept in Ethan's lap for almost an hour. When she finally woke up, she rubbed her eyes and looked around, disoriented. Then she saw Ethan and smiled. "Eitan," she said, her voice sleepy. "Hi, sleepyhead." She yawned and snuggled back against him, not seeming to be in a hurry to leave. Scarlett watched it all, her heart aching in a way she couldn't explain. For the first time since Lily was born, she didn't feel alone. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, if things really could get better. The days began to repeat themselves. Every late afternoon, around 6 o'clock, the doorbell rang. And every time, Lily dropped whatever she was doing, blocks, crayons, Fluffy the bunny, and ran to the door. "Ethan!" she shouted, her eyes shining with excitement. Scarlett opened the door, and there he was, always in the same light dress shirt, dark trousers, discreet shoes, as if he had just left work, as if this were a natural part of his routine, and maybe it was. Lily didn't wait for him to fully enter. As soon as the door opened, she threw herself at his legs, hugging with all the strength her tiny arms allowed. "Hey, sweetie," Ethan would say, bending down to her height. "You took too long," Lily would complain, pouting. "Sorry, boss. Work was busy today." Lily accepted the excuse and pulled his hand, dragging him inside. One of the first things Lily did every day was to fix Ethan's shirt. It didn't matter that the shirt was already perfectly aligned. For her, it was a ritual. She stood on her tiptoes, trying to reach the shirt collar, and smoothed the fabric with her tiny hands, as if she were fixing something very important. Her tongue poked out, a sign that she was concentrating. Ethan stood still, patient, letting her do whatever she wanted. "Done," Lily would finally announce, patting his chest. "Now you look handsome." "Thank you, boss. I don't know what I would do without you." Lily smiled, proud, and pulled his hand again. "Come on, come see what I drew." Drawing had become a daily activity. Lily spread the crayons on the living room floor, and Ethan sat beside her, cross-legged, helping her choose the colors. He never drew for her. He just sat there, watching, asking questions. "What color are you going to use now?" "Blue," Lily would answer, picking up the crayon with determination. Good choice. She drew with wide, uncoordinated strokes, circles that were supposed to be heads, lines that were supposed to be arms. But for her, every drawing was a masterpiece, and Ethan treated it as such. "Who is this one?" he would ask, pointing to a figure that looked more like a colored blur. "It's you," Lily would reply, as if it were obvious. "Me? I look very handsome in this drawing." "You do?" she would agree, seriously. Afterwards, she would show the drawing to her mother, running to the kitchen with the paper in her hand. "Mommy, look what I made." Scarlett would drop what she was doing and crouch down to see. "How beautiful, sweetie. Did you draw Ethan?" "I did, and I drew you too." "And Fluffy." "It's perfect." Lily would smile and run back to show another drawing. At night, before bed, Ethan would tell stories. They weren't stories from books. They were invented stories, full of funny voices and crazy characters. Lily would lie on the sofa, her head in his lap, hugging her bunny, and listen with wide eyes. And then the dragon said, Ethan would use a deep, raspy voice, "Who dares enter my castle?" Lily would giggle, covering her mouth with her hand, and the princess replied. Ethan would switch to a high-pitched, dramatic voice. "What can I do? The brave princess, and I've come for my magic bunny." "Just like Fluffy," Lily would shout, holding up the bunny. Exactly. The stories never ended. Ethan invented as he went along, and Lily completed them with crazy ideas. And then a giant unicorn appeared, she would suggest. "A giant unicorn that ate pizza," Ethan would add, "and ice cream." "And ice cream too." Lily laughed so hard that sometimes she had to stop to catch her breath. Scarlett, from the kitchen, listened to everything and smiled. The apartment, which had once been so silent, was now filled with laughter. Lily had a habit of asking to be held out of nowhere. It didn't matter what Ethan was doing, setting the table, putting away toys, talking to Scarlett. Suddenly she would appear beside him, holding up her tiny arms. Up. It wasn't a request, it was an order. And Ethan always obeyed. He picked her up without complaining, and she would snuggle against his chest, resting her head on his shoulder. Sometimes she was quiet, just enjoying the moment. Other times, she would start talking about random things. "Ethan, do you like butterflies?" "I do. They're beautiful. I like them too. And birdies. And clouds." "Clouds are cool indeed. And cookies." Ethan laughed. "Cookies are very good." Lily nodded in agreement, satisfied. Cutting fruit had become another routine. Every afternoon, Ethan would go to the kitchen, grab apples, bananas, strawberries, whatever they had, and cut everything into small pieces. He would put them on a little plate and take them to Lily. She ate slowly, holding each piece with both hands, chewing carefully. "Is it tasty?" Ethan would ask. Lily would nod, her mouth full. "Want more?" Another nod. He would cut more, and she would happily eat everything. Scarlett watched from a distance, her heart aching. It was such a simple gesture, so small. But it meant so much. Scarlett and Ethan cooked dinner together almost every night. In the beginning, it was clumsy. They bumped into each other in the small kitchen, apologized, and laughed awkwardly. But over time, it became natural. Ethan chopped the vegetables while Scarlett seasoned the meat. She stirred the pot while he washed the dishes. Synchronized movements without needing to coordinate. Sometimes, their shoulders touched as they passed each other. Sometimes, their hands brushed when reaching for the same utensil. Small moments, almost imperceptible. But Scarlett noticed, and Ethan did too. They talked while they cooked. About the day, about Lily, about small, unimportant things. But there was something comfortable about it, something that felt right. Lily sat on the living room floor playing, but every now and then she would stretch her neck to see what they were doing. "Mommy, is it ready yet?" "Almost, sweetie." "I'm hungry." "It'll be ready soon, sweetie," Ethan would reply, looking over his shoulder. Lily would go back to playing satisfied. When dinner was ready, they sat down at the table, the three of them together. Lily told disconnected stories. Ethan pretended to understand everything. Scarlett laughed at his expressions. "And then the dog talked to the tree," Lily would say, gesturing dramatically, seriously. "And what did the tree say back?" Ethan would ask, completely engaged. "It said it wanted ice cream." "Makes sense." Scarlett would shake her head, smiling. "You two are impossible." But deep down, she loved it. After dinner, while Scarlett washed the dishes, Ethan helped Lily brush her teeth. She stood on a small stool in front of the bathroom sink and he held the brush, teaching her to make circular motions. "Like this. See," he would show her. Lily imitated him, her mouth full of foam. "Am I doing it right?" "Perfectly." She spit into the sink and smiled at the mirror, proud of her clean teeth. At bedtime, Lily always asked Ethan to say goodnight. Scarlett would tuck her into bed, adjust the blanket, kiss her forehead, but Lily would crane her neck, looking for Ethan. "Where's Ethan?" "I'm here," he would say, appearing at the doorway. Lily would stretch out her tiny arms, and he would approach, bending down beside the bed. She would hug him, squeezing tight. "Say goodnight, boss." "Good night, Ethan." He would kiss her forehead, adjust the bunny beside her, and slowly leave, leaving the door ajar. And then the house would fall quiet. But it wasn't the silence from before anymore. It wasn't the heavy, empty, suffocating silence. It was the silence of people at peace. Scarlett and Ethan would sit on the sofa, tired but content. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they stayed quiet, just enjoying each other's company. The apartment that once seemed cold and lonely now felt alive, full of laughter, full of life, full of something Scarlett didn't yet dare to name, but which, little by little, was starting to feel like a real home. Scarlett was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the screen of the old laptop, when Ethan arrived that afternoon. Lily ran to the door as always, shouting, "Ethan!" But this time, Scarlett didn't get up to greet him. She kept looking at the screen, her shoulders tense, her face tired. Ethan walked in, picked Lily up for a quick hug, and put her down. "Go play for a bit, sweetie. I need to talk to your mum." Lily nodded and ran to her toys. Ethan approached the table and saw what Scarlett was looking at. Job vacancies, dozens of them open in different tabs. "Are you looking for work?" he asked, pulling up a chair and sitting beside her. Scarlett nodded but didn't look at him. Her eyes were fixed on the screen, but Ethan realized she wasn't really reading anything. She was just frozen. "I found some vacancies," she said, her voice low. "Stores, supermarkets, even reception work. I sent my resume to about 10 today." "That's great," Ethan said, trying to sound encouraging. Scarlett finally looked at him, and that's when Ethan saw it. Her eyes were red. She had been crying. "It's not great," she said, her voice trembling, "because even if I get an interview, even if they call me, I won't be able to go." Ethan frowned. "Why not?" "Because I have nowhere to leave, Lily." She said it as if it were obvious, as if it were a problem with no solution. "The interviews are during the day. And if I get the job, I'll also have to work during the day, so what? What do I do with her?" Scarlett's voice rose slightly, laden with despair. "I have no one, Ethan. I don't have family here. I don't have friends who can help. And daycare costs money I don't have." She covered her face with her hands, taking a deep breath, trying to control herself. How am I going to work?" The question came out as a broken whisper. Ethan remained silent for a moment, watching her. He wanted to say something comforting, something that would solve everything, but he knew it wasn't that simple. Before he could speak, Lily appeared beside Scarlett's chair. The girl had heard her mother's tone of voice. She climbed onto Scarlett's lap and touched her face with her tiny hands, pulling away the hands that covered her eyes. "Mommy, I'll be good." Scarlett looked at her daughter, her eyes filling with tears again. "What, sweetie?" "I'll be good. I promise. I won't cry, I won't make a mess." Lily spoke with such seriousness that it broke Scarlett's heart. A 3-year-old child trying to comfort her mother, trying to be the solution. Scarlett hugged her daughter tightly, burying her face in her blonde hair. "I know you're good, my love. You're the best girl in the world." Lily pulled back slightly and wiped a tear from her mother's face with her little finger. "Then don't cry." Ethan watched it all, feeling something clench inside his chest. He waited until Scarlett composed herself a little before speaking. "We're going to solve this," he said firmly. Scarlett looked at him, her eyes still wet. "How?" "First, we'll look up daycares. There has to be one that's affordable, or some assistance program. Second, we'll revise your resume, make it stronger, and third," he paused, "if you need it, I'll help with the daycare until you get back on your feet." Scarlett shook her head immediately. "No, you've already done too much. I can't accept that." "Yes, you can," Ethan said without hesitation, "and you will accept it, because Lily needs it." "And you need it." Scarlett remained silent, looking at him. There was something about that man she couldn't understand. Why did he care so much? Why was he doing all this? But before she could ask, Ethan was already opening another tab on the laptop. "Let's start." They spent the entire afternoon researching. Ethan found 3 daycares in the area with more affordable prices. One of them had a scholarship program for mothers in vulnerable situations. He wrote everything down, organized the phone numbers, marked which one Scarlett should call first. Then they revised her resume. "You have customer service experience, right?" Ethan asked. "I do. I worked in a clothing store for 3 years. Then highlight that. Put that you have communication skills, that you can deal with different types of people, that you are organized." Scarlett typed as he spoke, adjusting the phrases. "And put here that you have schedule flexibility." "But I don't," Scarlett said, hesitant. "That's because of Lily. You will once she's in daycare," Ethan replied, "so it's not a lie, it's planning." Scarlett smiled slightly. For the first time that day, she felt a glimmer of hope. Lily was lying on the living room rug, drawing. Every now and then she looked up at the two of them and smiled, happy to see them together. When they finished revising the resume, Scarlett saved the file and closed the laptop, sighing. "Thank you," she said, looking at Ethan. "Seriously, thank you." "You don't have to thank me. We're a team now." Scarlett smiled, but then a doubt that had been circling her mind for days finally came out. "Where do you work?" Ethan blinked as if he hadn't expected the question. Why? Because you show up here every day at the same time, always well dressed, but you never talk about work, and I want to know. Ethan was quiet for a moment, as if deciding what to say. Then he sighed and leaned back in the chair. I own a multinational company. Scarlett blinked, bewildered. What? Business consulting. We work with large corporations, helping to optimize processes, reduce costs, those kinds of things. Scarlett was speechless. You own a multinational company? I do. And you come here every day in a dress shirt and trousers, pretending to be my husband to fool Child Protective Services. Ethan shrugged. Yes. Scarlett didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Why? Why aren't you using that time to, I don't know, close deals, make money? Because I chose to live simply, Ethan replied. I have money. I have more than I need. But that's not what I enjoy. I like real things, real people, things that matter. He looked at Lily, who was now trying to fit colorful blocks together. This matters. Scarlett was speechless. I only wear a suit when I really need to, Ethan continued. Important meetings, presentations, but day to day, I prefer this. Simple, no ostentation. Scarlett looked at him, still processing everything. If they find out who you really are, she began, her voice worried. If the social worker finds out, she won't believe you're my husband. She'll think it's a lie. Ethan looked her directly in the eyes. Status doesn't matter, Scarlett. You matter. She felt her chest tighten. But no buts, he interrupted, gentle but firm. I chose to be here, and I'll continue choosing it. Lily got up from the floor and ran to Ethan, bringing something in her hands. It was an old tie that Scarlett didn't even know where it had come from. Ethan, put this on, Lily said, trying to put the tie around his neck. Ethan laughed and bent down. Guys, you want to dress me up, huh? Yes, you need to look handsome. She tried to tie the knot, but only managed to make a messy tangle of fabric. The tie was all crooked, barely fastened, ridiculous. But Ethan didn't take it off. He left it as it was, smiling at Lily. It's perfect, boss. Lily clapped her hands, proud. So now you're really handsome. Scarlett watched it all, her heart aching. How could this man be so patient, so kind? Night fell quickly. After dinner, Lily began to get sleepy. She climbed into Ethan's lap and rested her head on his chest, hugging Fluffy the bunny. Ethan held her carefully, stroking her back gently. Within minutes, Lily was asleep, her breathing calm and deep. I'm going to put her to bed, Ethan whispered to Scarlett. She nodded. Ethan slowly got up, holding Lily against his chest, and walked to the room. Scarlett followed him, watching. He laid Lily on the bed with such care that she didn't even stir. He covered her with the blanket, adjusted the bunny beside her, and bent down, kissing her forehead gently. Good night, sweetie, he whispered. Scarlett felt her eyes sting. Ethan left the room, closing the door slowly, and found Scarlett standing in the hallway, looking at him with an expression he couldn't decipher. Come, she said softly. I want to show you something. They returned to the living room and sat on the sofa. Scarlett picked up a cup of tea she had prepared and offered it to Ethan. He accepted it, but didn't drink. He just held it, waiting. Scarlett took a deep breath. I need to know, she began. Why are you doing this, really? It's not just for Lily. It's not just because you're a good person. There's something more. I see it in your eyes. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he put the cup on the table and leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. I've lost everything before, he said, his voice low. Scarlett blinked, surprised. What? Years ago, I had a smaller company, but promising. I had partners, I had plans. I thought I was building something solid. He paused, looking at his own hands. But I was betrayed. One of my partners embezzled money, a lot of money. When I found out, it was too late. The company went bankrupt. I lost everything, my house, my savings, my reputation. Scarlett remained silent, just listening. I made wrong investments trying to recover what I had lost. I just sank deeper. I was scared, ashamed. There were days when I didn't know if I would be able to eat. He looked up and met Scarlett's gaze. I had to start over from scratch, completely, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done. Scarlett felt her chest tighten. Life knocked me down, Ethan continued, his voice firm now. But I got back up, and you will too. He moved a little closer, looking directly into her eyes. And I'm going to be by your side. Scarlett felt tears well up, but this time they were different. They weren't from despair, they were from something she couldn't name. Ethan took a deep breath and said, with an honesty that completely disarmed her, choosing to help you was the best choice I've made in my life. The silence that followed was heavy, charged. Scarlett looked at him, and he looked at her, so close, so near that she could feel his warmth. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, they leaned toward each other. Ethan's eyes dropped to Scarlett's lips. Hers did the same. Her heart raced. His did too. They were centimeters apart. Both their breaths were uneven. But then, Scarlett pulled back slightly. Not much, just enough to break the moment. Ethan blinked, coming back to himself, and pulled away too, running a hand through his hair. Sorry, he said softly. Don't, Scarlett replied, her voice shaky. You don't need to apologize. They remained silent, the air still charged between them. But something had changed. Something real, something deep. And both of them knew it. The day of the second visit dawned bright and calm. Scarlett woke up early, her stomach churning with nervousness. She had slept poorly, waking up several times during the night, checking the clock, counting the hours remaining. It was 2 p.m. when Mrs. Harrison would return. She got up, made coffee, and looked around. The house was clean, organized. In the last few days, she and Ethan had worked together to make everything impeccable. There wasn't a cushion out of place. There wasn't a toy lying on the floor, but it wasn't just that. The house looked different. It looked alive. There were Lily's drawings taped to the fridge with colorful magnets. There were flowers in a simple vase on the kitchen table. There were recent photos, some that Ethan had taken of Lily playing, others of the three of them together. There was life there. Warmth. Love. Lily woke up shortly after, rubbing her eyes and dragging Fluffy the bunny across the floor. Good morning, my love, Scarlett said, picking her up and kissing her face. Good morning, Mommy. Is Ethan coming today? He is. And the lady who came last time is coming too. Lily made a face. The boring lady? Scarlett held back a laugh. She's not boring, sweetie. She's just doing her job. Lily didn't seem convinced, but she didn't argue. She was more interested in breakfast. Scarlett prepared pancakes, something she had learned to make in the last few weeks, always with Ethan helping. Lily ate with enthusiasm, smearing honey all over her face. The morning passed slowly. Every minute felt like an hour. Ethan arrived shortly before noon. When Scarlett opened the door, she barely recognized him. He looked different. He was wearing a dark grey suit, perfectly fitted to his body, an immaculate white shirt, a discreet navy blue tie, polished dress shoes. His hair was neat but not exaggerated. He looked exactly as he should, a successful man but not ostentatious, elegant but discreet, trustworthy. Wow, Scarlett said without thinking. Ethan smiled slightly, adjusting his tie. I thought it best to dress up today. First impression, you know. You look different. In a good way. Definitely. Lily appeared behind her mother, holding Fluffy, and looked at Ethan with wide blue eyes. Ethan, you're handsome. He crouched down and opened his arms. Lily ran to him and hugged him tightly, wrinkling his shirt without caring. Thank you, boss. You told me to be handsome, remember? Lily giggled, proud. I remember. And you are. Ethan walked in, carefully took off his suit jacket and hung it on the back of a chair. He rolled up his shirt sleeves slightly and looked around, checking every detail. Is everything ready? Scarlett nodded, but he noticed the tension on her face. It is. The house is clean. The fridge is full. Everything is in place. And you? Ethan asked, approaching and looking directly into her eyes. Are you okay? Scarlett took a deep breath, trying to control her nervousness. I'm nervous. What if she thinks it's not good enough? What if it's going to be all right? Ethan interrupted, firm but gentle. He placed his hands on her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. You did everything right. We did everything right. It's going to be all right. He spoke with such certainty that Scarlett almost believed him. At 2 p.m. sharp, the doorbell rang. The sound echoed through the house like a bell announcing a verdict. Scarlett felt her heart pound. Her hands instantly sweated. Ethan placed his hand on her shoulder, a quick and comforting gesture. Breathe, he said softly. She nodded, wiped her hands on her trousers and went to the door. Mrs. Harrison was there, with the same clipboard, the same thin glasses, the same professional expression. But this time, Scarlett didn't feel so scared. She had Ethan by her side. She had Lily, and she had done everything she could. Good afternoon, Mrs. Harrison said, her tone neutral. Good afternoon, please come in. Mrs. Harrison entered and surveyed the room. Her eyes scanned every corner, every detail. The house was different from last time, not just cleaner, more alive, more welcoming. Ethan stood up from the sofa and extended his hand, posture upright, confident but not arrogant. Good afternoon, Ms. Harrison. She shook his hand, observing him closely. He looked different too, more formal, more present, more solid. Lily was sitting on the rug, drawing with crayons. When she saw Mrs. Harrison, she paused for a moment, then got up and ran to Ethan, grabbing his leg and hiding behind him, peeking at the visitor with curious but cautious eyes. Ms. Harrison made a note on the clipboard. How have you been doing? She asked, the tone still professional. Well, Scarlett replied, her voice firmer now. Very well, actually. Ethan, are you still living here? Yes, he replied without hesitation, looking directly at Mrs. Harrison. I came back permanently. I have no plans to travel anytime soon. My place is here with my family. Mrs. Harrison nodded, writing something. And are you working? Yes, business consulting. I have an office here in the city now. I can balance work and family without problems. Mrs. Harrison walked around the room, observing. She saw the drawings on the fridge. There were at least 10, all colourful, all signed by Lily with crooked letters. She saw the vase with fresh flowers. She saw the toys organised in the box, but also some scattered on the floor, a sign that the house was truly lived in, not just tidied for inspection. She saw a recent photo of the three of them on the corner table. Lily in the middle, smiling, Scarlett on one side, Ethan on the other. They looked happy, real. May I see the bedrooms again? Of course, Scarlett said, guiding her down the hallway. They went to Lily's room. The bed was made with a cloud-patterned duvet. There were children's books organized on the low shelf, toys tidy but accessible. Clean folded clothes in the small wardrobe, a moon-shaped nightlight on the bedside table. Miss Harrison observed everything in silence, walking slowly, checking every detail. She opened the wardrobe. She saw clean clothes, the right size. She checked the window. It had a safety lock. She made more notes. Then, they went to the main bedroom. It was simple, but tidy. Bed made, clothes organized, nothing extravagant but respectable. There was a framed photo on the dresser, baby Lily in Scarlett's arms. When they returned to the living room, Miss Harrison sat down on the chair and fully opened the clipboard. Scarlett, did you get a job? Scarlett nodded, feeling a surge of pride rise in her chest. Yes. I started last week at a department store. I work part-time from 9 to noon. And where is Lily during those hours? She's at a daycare, Sunshine Kids, 3 blocks from here. I managed to get a partial scholarship through the social assistance program. Ethan helped me with the rest of the tuition until I'm fully stable. Ms. Harrison looked at Ethan. You've been helping financially. I have, he replied, calm but firm. I'm her husband. It's my responsibility too to care for Lily and ensure she has what she needs. Mrs. Harrison made more notes, her face still neutral, impossible to read. Lily, who had returned to the rug, picked up a paper and ran to Ms. Harrison with quick steps, holding it out to her with both hands. Look what I made. Miss Harrison lowered the clipboard and took the paper, looking closely. It was a drawing, Three figures drawn with crayons, a taller one with long yellow hair, clearly Scarlett. A small one in the middle, also blonde, Lily. And another tall figure beside them, with dark hair, Ethan. They were holding hands. There was a sun in the corner, flowers on the ground, and hearts floating around. Underneath, in crooked, childish letters, was written, "Mommy plus me plus Ethan. Ms." Harrison looked at the drawing for a long moment. Her eyes scanned every detail, the big smiles drawn on the faces, the connected hands, the hearts. Then she looked at Lily. "Did you draw your family?" Lily nodded, smiling widely. Proud. "Yes, that's Mommy, that's me, and that's Ethan." "And who is Ethan?" Lily pointed to Ethan without hesitation. "Him. He's my... he's..." She paused, searching for the right word. Then her eyes lit up. "He's my Ethan." Miss Harrison looked at Ethan, then at Scarlett, then at Lily again, who had now returned to Ethan's lap, hugging him around the neck. The girl looked happy, comfortable, healthy, safe. Miss. Harrison placed the drawing back on the clipboard and slowly stood up. May I speak with the two of you in the kitchen?" Scarlett felt her stomach clench violently, but nodded. Ethan accompanied her, briefly touching her lower back, a gesture of support. Lily stayed in the living room, returning to her drawings. In the kitchen, Mrs. Harrison turned to them, her expression still professional, but something had changed. There was a softness in her eyes that wasn't there before. "You both did a good job," she said. Scarlett held her breath. "The house is organized, clean, welcoming. Lily is well cared for, well fed, happy, healthy. You two seem to be working well together. There is structure here, there is stability." She paused, flipping through her notes. "During the last visit, I had doubts. There were signs that things were difficult. But today I see something different. I see stability. I see real affection. I see a family that works." Scarlett felt her eyes sting, but didn't dare to blink. "Ms." Harrison closed the clipboard and looked directly at Scarlett. "Custody is approved. Scarlett, it is secured. There will be no further visits. The case is closed." The words took a second to process. Then, suddenly, everything collapsed. Scarlett felt her legs weaken. She covered her mouth with her hands, trying to hold back the tears. But it was impossible. The tears came strongly, carrying all the fear, all the tension, all the despair of the last few months. Seriously," she managed to say between sobs. "Seriously, Lily stays with you. No restrictions." Ethan placed his hand on Scarlett's back, firm and comforting. "Thank you," Scarlett whispered, her voice breaking. Thank you so much." Mrs. Harrison nodded, allowing herself a small smile. "You deserve it. Keep going like this. Keep caring for her. And you'll be fine." They returned to the living room. Lily was playing with the blocks, building an unstable tower, oblivious to what had just happened. Miss Harrison gathered her things and walked to the door. Scarlett accompanied her, still wiping away tears. "Good luck, Scarlett, to the three of you. Thank you, seriously, for everything, Ms." Harrison left, and Scarlett slowly closed the door. For a moment she stood there, her back to the room, her hands still on the doorknob, trying to process. It was approved. Custody was secured. Lily wouldn't be taken away. Never again. She turned around, and Ethan was there, standing in the middle of the room, smiling. "We did it," he said. Scarlett couldn't hold back. She ran to him and hugged him with all the strength she had, burying her face in his chest, letting the tears fall freely. Ethan held her back, squeezing her against him, one hand on her back, the other on the back of her neck. "Thank you," she whispered between sobs. "Thank you for everything, for being here, for not giving up, for believing. You don't need to thank me, we're a team." Lily looked at the two of them and dropped the blocks, running to them with open arms. "I want a hug too." Scarlett bent down and picked Lily up. Ethan put his arms around both of them, and the three stood like that, hugging in the middle of the living room, forming a tight, warm circle. Lily giggled, squeezing her arms around Ethan's neck and kissing his cheek with a loud smack. "Now are we a real family?" she asked, innocent, her voice full of hope. Scarlett looked up at Ethan over Lily's head. He looked back, Neither of them answered immediately, but the answer was there in each other's eyes, in the tight hug, in Lily's smile. In the drawing stuck on the fridge, yes, they were a family. Maybe not in the traditional way, maybe not in the way either of them had planned or imagined, but they were, and that was real, more real than anything. The night had fallen calmly over the house. Lily was already in her room, sleeping deeply after listening to 2 stories. The twins, Chloe and Claire, were also asleep, bundled up in their blankets on the sofa, breathing softly and calmly. Scarlett was sitting on the living room floor, next to the sofa, just watching Chloe and Claire. She gently ran her hand through their blonde hair, an automatic gesture full of love, but her face was serious, thoughtful. Ethan walked into the room with 2 mugs of tea and stopped when he saw her like that. He knew that expression. It was the expression of someone who was overthinking, carrying a burden she didn't need to carry alone. "Everything okay?" he asked, sitting beside her and handing her a mug. Scarlett took the tea but didn't drink. She just held it, feeling the warmth in her hands, as if she needed it to ground herself. "Ethan, I need to talk to you." He felt his chest tighten. That tone of voice, he knew it well. It was the tone of someone about to say something difficult, something that had been held back for too long. "Of course. You can tell me anything." Scarlett took a deep breath, looking at the twins before finally speaking. I think I've stayed here longer than I should have." Ethan felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. The air left his lungs all at once. "What?" "I came here because I had no choice," Scarlett continued, her voice low but firm. "You took me in when I needed it most. You gave me food, warmth, security, a roof over our heads. But it's been weeks, Ethan. And I can't keep taking advantage of your kindness." "You're not taking advantage of anything," Ethan said quickly, his voice louder than he intended. "Yes, I am," Scarlett insisted, finally looking at him. Her eyes were red, as if she had been crying earlier. "You have your life, your routine, your daughter, and I showed up out of nowhere and messed everything up. I brought my daughters, my baggage, my problems. You didn't ask for any of this." "You didn't mess up anything," Ethan said, his voice more controlled now but still intense. "Yes, I did. I took up your space, your home, and I need to start getting organized. Look for a job, find a place to live with the girls. I can't keep depending on you forever. It's not fair to you." Ethan put his mug down on the floor harder than he intended, making a dry sound that echoed in the silent room. He turned completely towards her. "Scarlett, look at me." She hesitated but looked. "You're not depending on me," Ethan said firmly. "We're living together. We're functioning as a family. That's not dependence. That's partnership. It's sharing life." Scarlett felt her eyes sting, the tears threatening to fall. But it wasn't supposed to be like this. "I didn't want you to feel obligated to take care of me, obligated to keep me here out of pity or courtesy." "Pity?" Ethan almost laughed, but it was a humorless laugh. "Do you really think it's out of pity?" "I don't know," Scarlett admitted, her voice breaking. "I just know I can't keep staying here without having something to offer in return. Without being able to truly contribute." "Stop," Ethan said, raising his hand. "Please let me talk." Scarlett closed her mouth, the tears already silently streaming down her face. She nodded, giving him space to speak. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to organize his thoughts. He had so much to say but didn't know where to start. So he decided to start with the simplest truth. "Since you arrived here, everything has changed," he began, his voice low but firm. "The house became more alive, warmer, fuller. And it's not just because there are more people. It's because you brought something that had been missing for a long time." Scarlett continued looking at him, listening to every word. "Lily is happier than I've ever seen her be," Ethan continued. "She wakes up smiling every day. She talks about you all the time. At school, to her friends, to anyone who will listen. She finally has what she always wanted, a mother figure. And it's not just any mother figure, it's you." Scarlett quietly sobbed, bringing her hand to her mouth. "Dad, Ethan paused, swallowing hard, feeling his own throat tighten. "I'm different too. I didn't know anything was missing from my life until you showed up. I thought everything was fine, that Lily and I were enough, and we were. But now I realize that life can be more than just surviving. It can be truly living. Ethan, don't say that. Scarlett started, but he continued. Why not? It's the truth, he said, looking directly into her eyes. I realized that we work, Scarlett. We truly work. It's not forced. It's not strange. It's not temporary. It's natural. As if you've always been a part of our life. As if this has always been your place. Scarlett wiped the tears from her face with the back of her hand, but they kept falling. I wake up in the morning and you're already taking care of the girls, Ethan continued, his voice becoming more emotional. We have breakfast together. We divide the chores without even planning it. We read stories to Lily together. And at the end of the day, we sit here and talk about everything, and I don't want that to end, I really don't. But I can't just stay here without having anything to give in return. Scarlett tried to argue, but her voice came out weak. You offer everything, Ethan interrupted, his voice failing now. You offer affection, care, presence. You make this house a real home. Before you arrived, this was just a house where we slept and ate. Now it's a home where we live, and the difference is you. He stopped, took a deep breath, and decided to say what had been in his heart for days. And I need you to know something important. Scarlett stared at him, her heart pounding in her chest. What? Ethan held her face with both hands, delicately, making her look directly into his eyes. I've fallen in love with you. The silence that followed was dense, heavy. Scarlett held her breath, her eyes wide. What did you say? I've fallen in love with you, Ethan repeated, more confidently this time, letting his own tears fall. Guy, with your strength, your courage, the way you take care of your daughters even when everything seemed impossible. The way you care for Lily, as if she were yours from day one. The way you look at me, the way you smile. Everything, Scarlett, everything about you. Scarlett's tears flowed freely now, wetting her face and his hands. I know this might seem fast, Ethan continued, his voice shaky but resolute. I know we haven't known each other for long, just a few weeks. But what I feel, it's real, Scarlett. It's the most real thing I've ever felt in my life. And I don't want to pretend it's not. I don't want to pretend anymore that you're just a friend, that you're only here temporarily. Because that's not true, not for me. Scarlett covered her face with her hands, sobbing louder now. I'm so scared, Ethan, she said between sobs. I'm scared of depending again. I'm scared of trusting and being abandoned again. I'm scared that you'll wake up one day and realize you don't want this anymore. That I'm too much of a burden. You are not a burden, Ethan said firmly, pulling her hands away from her face. You never were and never will be. And I won't wake up one day and change my mind. Because what I feel for you isn't fleeting. It's not pity. It's not obligation. It's love, Scarlett. Real love. Scarlett looked at him through the tears, and something inside her broke, not from pain but from relief. I've fallen in love with you too, she whispered. Ethan felt his heart nearly explode in his chest. What? She smiled through her tears, letting her guard down completely. I've fallen in love with you too, Ethan, she repeated, her voice firmer now. With your patience, your generosity, the incredible father you are. The way you took me in when I had nothing. The way you never made me feel like a burden. The way you look at me as if I truly matter. You do matter, Ethan said, his voice choked. You matter a lot. You and your girls are a part of my life now, and I don't want that to change. Ever? Scarlett threw herself into his arms, and Ethan held her tight as if afraid she would disappear. They stayed like that, hugging on the living room floor, crying together, letting all the fears, all the doubts, all the insecurities drain away. It was a hug of relief, of acceptance, of truth. It was a hug of home. I was so scared of losing you, Ethan whispered, his face buried in her hair, of you leaving and taking the girls, of this house becoming empty again. I was scared too, Scarlett replied, squeezing him tighter. Scared of depending, scared of getting hurt again. But I don't want to be scared anymore. Not of you? Then don't be, Ethan said, pulling back just enough to look into her eyes. Stay here. With me. With Lily. With your girls. We build this together. A real family. Scarlett looked into his eyes and smiled. Together? Together, Ethan confirmed, smiling too. Me, you, Lily, Chloe, and Claire. We're already a family, Scarlett. We have been for a while. We just needed to acknowledge it. She nodded. Together, then. They hugged again, and this time the embrace was different. It was a promise. It was commitment. It was love declared and accepted. And then, from the hallway, they heard an excited little voice. Are you guys dating? Ethan and Scarlett quickly pulled apart. Lily was there in her pajamas, holding her teddy bear, with a huge grin on her face. Lily, Ethan began, you should be asleep. I woke up with the noise, the girl said, walking into the room. But it was happy crying, right? Scarlett laughed through her tears. It was, yes. Very happy crying. Lily ran to them and threw herself in the middle, hugging both of them. So you're going to be together, forever? Ethan looked at Scarlett, who looked back, smiling. Yes, Ethan said, we're going to be together. Lily cheered excitedly, but quickly covered her mouth, remembering the twins. Sorry, she whispered. But I'm so happy. We are too, Scarlett said, kissing her cheek. Does that mean I have a real mom now? Lily asked, her eyes shining. Scarlett held Lily's little face with both hands. It means you always had a mother, darling. It just took me a little while to get to you, but now I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. Lily threw herself around Scarlett's neck. I love you, Scarlett. Very, very, very much. Scarlett closed her eyes. I love you too, Lily. Very, very, very much. Ethan hugged the two of them, and they stayed like that for a while, a small family, hugging on the living room floor while the twins slept peacefully. When they finally pulled apart, Lily yawned. Joyce, can I sleep here with you? You can, Scarlett said. Lily snuggled onto the sofa, lying down between the twins. Ethan covered her gently. Now we're a real family, Lily murmured. A complete family. We are, Ethan agreed. They stayed there, watching the three girls sleep. The fireplace crackled. The lights on the Christmas tree blinked softly. Thank you, Scarlett whispered. For what? For making me believe again, in family, in love, in starting over. Ethan took her hand and intertwined their fingers. You made me believe too. Scarlett rested her head on his shoulder, and Ethan kissed the top of her head. We found each other at the right time, she said. At the perfect time, he agreed. They stayed like that, in silence, enjoying the moment, enjoying each other's presence, enjoying the peace they had finally found. There was no more fear. There was no more doubt. There was no more loneliness. They had found each other in the middle of the snow on a Christmas night when both were lost, and now they had truly found each other, as family, as love, as home. The house was no longer just Ethan and Lily's, it was theirs, all of theirs, a complete family, and it always would be. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like, because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.